Imagine a land where famine was once a yearly reality, where millions struggled to survive, and where isolation from the world left its people trapped in poverty. Now imagine that same land rising within just 3 decades to become the world's second largest economy, a technological powerhouse, and a geopolitical rival to the United States. This is the story of China's transformation, the fastest and most dramatic rise to power in modern history. It is a story of vision, reform, and relentless ambition, a story that begins in the late 1970s when China was still reeling from decades of political turmoil and economic stagnation. At that time, China was isolated from the global market, its industries outdated, and its people desperate. The Great Leap Forward had promised industrial progress but delivered famine and suffering. The Cultural Revolution had torn apart institutions, silenced intellectuals, and left the nation fractured. By the mid-1970s, China was one of the poorest countries in the world, its GDP per capita lower than that of sub-Saharan Africa, its infrastructure crumbling, and its people yearning for change. In 1978, Deng Xiaoping emerged as the architect of a new vision. Deng was pragmatic, not ideological. He believed that China could remain politically communist while embracing economic openness. His famous words captured this philosophy. It doesn't matter whether a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. For Deng, ideology mattered less than results, and the results he sought were prosperity, stability, and modernization. The first reforms targeted agriculture. For decades, farmers had been bound by collective farming systems that stifled productivity. Deng introduced the household responsibility system, allowing families to lease land and sell surplus produce. This simple change sparked a revolution in food security. Famine began to fade, and prosperity slowly took root in rural areas. Farmers, once trapped in poverty, now had incentives to produce more, and the nation's food supply stabilized. Soon after, China established special economic zones in cities like Shenzhen, Zhuhai, and Xiamen. These zones became magnets for foreign investment, offering tax incentives and a business-friendly environment. Shenzhen, once a sleepy fishing village, transformed into a bustling metropolis, a symbol of China's embrace of capitalism within a communist framework. Factories multiplied, foreign companies poured in, and China quickly became the world's factory. Cheap labor and efficient production made Chinese goods dominate global markets, and by the 1990s, China was exporting everything from textiles to electronics. This manufacturing boom fueled rapid GDP growth and lifted millions out of poverty, but it was only the beginning of China's grand strategy. The next milestone came in 2001 when China joined the World Trade Organization. This decision integrated China into the global economy and opened doors to massive export markets. Western companies outsourced production to China, while Chinese firms gained access to international buyers. The results were staggering. GDP skyrocketed, infrastructure projects transformed the nation, and highways, ports, airports, and high-speed rail networks connected cities in ways that accelerated industrial expansion. China was no longer just catching up with the world, it was leapfrogging ahead. Picture the crowded streets of Beijing in the 1980s, bicycles filling every lane, workers in blue uniforms streaming into factories. Contrast this with the glittering skyline of Shanghai today, where futuristic skyscrapers pierce the clouds and neon lights reflect off the Huangpu River. This transformation is not just physical, it is symbolic of China's leap from poverty to prosperity. By the 2000s, China realized it could not rely solely on low-cost manufacturing. The government invested heavily in science, technology, and education. Universities expanded, research centers flourished, and billions were poured into innovation. Today, China leads in 5G technology, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and electric vehicles. Companies like Huawei, BYD, and Tencent symbolize this shift from imitation to innovation. China is no longer just the world's factory, it is a global tech competitor, shaping the future of digital infrastructure and green energy. Consider the ports of Guangzhou, where containers stacked like mountains carry goods to every corner of the globe. Each shipment tells a story of China's integration into world trade, of how a nation once closed off became the beating heart of global supply chains. Think of the high-speed trains that glide across the countryside, connecting cities at 300 kilometers per hour. These trains are more than transportation. They are a metaphor for China's velocity, its determination to move faster, to catch up, and to surpass. Yet economic growth alone does not make superpower. To truly challenge the United States, China needed influence beyond its borders. In 2013, it launched the Belt and Road Initiative, a trillion-dollar project to build roads, railways, ports, and pipelines across Asia, Africa, and Europe. The goal was simple: expand China's influence by connecting the world through infrastructure. Countries welcomed Chinese investment, but critics warned of debt traps and strategic dominance. Regardless, the Belt and Road Initiative showcased China's ambition to reshape global trade routes and secure resources for its future. Meanwhile, China strengthened its military, particularly its navy, asserting dominance in the South China Sea. Artificial islands, military bases, and territorial claims signaled China's intent to challenge U.S. supremacy in Asia. At home, the Communist Party maintained centralized control, implementing policies like the one-child policy to manage population growth and later using surveillance systems, censorship, and digital monitoring to ensure political stability. This model of governance, criticized by many in the West, nonetheless provided China with consistency and long-term planning, something democracies often struggle with. In the palm of a hand, millions of Chinese citizens use apps like WeChat, not just to message friends, but to pay bills, order food, and even access government services. This digital ecosystem reflects China's ambition to lead in technology, to create systems that rival Silicon Valley and redefine modern life. But behind the glitter lies complexity. Rural villages still struggle with poverty, and environmental damage scars the landscape. Smog blankets cities, rivers run polluted, and the cost of growth weighs heavily on the nation's health. The government faces the delicate task of balancing prosperity with sustainability, of ensuring that the dragon's fire does not consume its own people. Internationally, China's rise has sparked admiration and anxiety. For developing nations, China offers investment, infrastructure, and partnership. For Western powers, China represents competition, a rival that challenges the established order. Trade wars, diplomatic disputes, and military tensions reflect this uneasy balance. Yet through it all, China continues to push forward. Its leaders speak of the Chinese dream, a vision of national rejuvenation, of restoring China to its rightful place as a global leader. This dream is not just about wealth or power, it is about pride, history, and destiny. The question remains, will China's rise be peaceful, cooperative, and beneficial to the world, or will it lead to conflict, rivalry, and division? The answer may define the 21st century. China's journey from famine to fortune is unparalleled. In just a few decades, it has lifted more people out of poverty than any nation in history, built world-class infrastructure, and positioned itself as a technological and geopolitical rival to the United States. This is the story of China's transformation. It is not just about economics. It is about vision, strategy, and resilience. Whether China becomes the dominant superpower of the 21st century remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the world can no longer ignore the dragon. The crowded factories of Shenzhen, the glittering towers of Shanghai, the vast railways stretching across the countryside, and the digital networks connecting millions of people all tell the same story. A nation that refused to remain poor. A nation that reinvented itself. A nation that rose from the ashes of famine to the heights of global power. This is not a story of chance. It is a story of deliberate choices, of leaders who embraced pragmatism, of citizens who endured hardship, and a nation that believed in its destiny. The dragon has awakened, and its fire burns bright. The world watches, some with admiration, some with fear, but all with recognition that the 21st century will be defined in part by the choices China makes and the path it takes.